What's up, everybody? This is Cam Lee from Massacre. Just kidding. It's the Death Zone with Eric. And, anyways, I scored a great deal on Peavey Triple X. I kind of went down the ultra rabbit hole for the past couple months since my last video, or the past month. I took this bad boy to rehearsal in my band Repulsor, kind of like old school grind core meets just death metal. Um, and it was too quiet, surprisingly. I mean, it's 60 watts, but I guess for um, the gain that it has, kind of, and if you keep it scooped, I guess it kind of is limiting. But I'm gonna have to get that looked at. It wasn't too out of the ordinary. It just barely made the cut for volume. Um, but anyhow, on OfferUp, I found this for $150. Offered 120 and accepted it, and I just kind of got it to work. Uh, and everyone knows the backstory behind it. In my opinion, I believe this is like the most middle of the road PV amp you can get. Even from when you could have got it for cheaper back in the day. I think this amp had a lot of potential for success, but I think a lot of people were turned off by it because of the whole mud flap girl wannabe Mesa Boogie kind of triple dual rectifier approach. This was, I think, the time when they were releasing the Valve King and the Windsor. I have the Windsor, but it's cool. I mean, it's made in USA. Has the whole 3-channel thing, and a lot of the reviewers on YouTube are praising for the Crunch channel, and a lot of people back then would have automatically just wanted to go for the Ultra. But it just has so much gain, and this definitely is an amp that you have to use your ears and fiddle with the knobs first, and not really go for the conventional approach with most heavily distorted or gainy tube amps of the time, or solid state. Like, you can't just scoop the mids all the way and boost the highs and lows. I think you have to really use your ears on this, and the cool thing about this one is that every guitar that you plug into it, you're gonna have to fiddle with it differently. But anywho, this amp is kind of like the final run for the Ultra series. They just kind of changed the name over the years and kept it 120 watts. When I had gotten it, the switch was on for the EL84 mode, and it has 606 GC tubes. So I mean, I could have probably, those tubes are probably on their way out, if not already. The light doesn't work, the pilot light, and it gets pretty loud. I mean, it's definitely going to cut better than my Ultra 60 right now. I think this one is going to be for recording purposes, unless when I bring it to a tech and they're saying, oh yeah, it's the tubes are making it sound like that, less wattage sounding. But at least I kind of have the solution right here if the Ultra doesn't work out. But anyways, this is supposed to be George Lynch's amp, and I'm kind of just regurgitating the same shit people say in the other videos. And he backed out of the deal, and I don't know what exactly the reason was, but in my opinion, I think it was around the time when Eddie Van Halen stopped with his contract. So I think it was just for the best to not, because it seemed like on a marketing standpoint, George Lynch kind of took over. Even though George Lynch isn't necessarily a household name, even though I think it should be. He's a very talented guitarist and made Dokken sound awesome, and one of the most greatest heavy metal guitar players. I don't know. I think the whole thing was just cheesy, and compare it being sponsored and having a 5150, and then you got some guy with this kind of amp. I think it just wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have damaged his reputation, but it would have definitely just. It was just. It was just. Not cringe, I would say, but it was just kind of cheesy. You because just the whole hair and body thing, and then the mud flap thing, and all that. But anywho, we'll get into the tone right now, and this is kind of like a one-trick pony. I think the real person that should have gotten this signature as a signature amp was Gary Holt, because he really loved this in like the mid to late 2000s, and then recorded, Death Amphetamine, that song. Like, if you hear that song or that album and all that, you can definitely hear this amp. So as you guys may or may not know, I've gotten rid of a lot of my Ampegs and crates because of the redundancy and also the lack of effectiveness when you try to play live. So sorry, but not sorry. I kind of moved on to stuff that will be like stress-free, I guess you could say, on a live situation and recording. The Ampegs and crates were great for recording, but that's about it. We're playing by yourself at home. In a nutshell, I just had a harder time trying to hear myself live playing those amps. But Peavey came through, and I don't know how they ripped off or kept the whole solid state scooped sound and made it into a tube and made it punchy, like what Terrence Hobbs says in the interviews, or that little rig rundown he had. It's true. I mean, I don't want to fuss around with a fucking solid state amp, especially live, and you can't hear yourself. And, maybe if I had a stereo rig, but I just don't have the space or the time to do that, when I'm going mobile. But anyhow, this is set to a relatively scoop setting with the Boss SD1. The Metal Zone kind of is overkill. The guitar I have is kind of noisy right now. The pots that I got, or the pickups I got on it, are from Amazon. They look like the bootleg Invaders, but they need to be dipped in wax, so they're kind of microphonic. I have the dampening switch set to loose, which is what a lot of people like, and it works for them. That whole characteristic is kind of cheesy too, misleading. The tight setting is kind of the opposite. It's like a whole resonance and presence thing built into 3 modes, and the crunch channel is where it's at. So I will definitely not try to kill anyone's ears. So here goes nothing. The Super Overdrive definitely brings like a glassy tone to like any amp that you kind of throw it at. So it makes it really, the notes jump out. The whole when they re-recorded Bonded by Blood, this fucking sounds exactly like it. In my opinion, after trying the 5150, I was like, shit, man, or the 5152, I ended up getting rid of it. I was just like, damn, this is it's harder than I thought getting that tone. But with this amp, if you're trying to get hardcore thrash and death metal, it's pretty effortless. And like I said, it's kind of run best at the crunch channel, and then you're kind of just at the mercy of the EQ and your whatever guitar you have. But it's not that hard to dial in. It's just on the live setting, people will probably think you do have a 5150, but it just sounds so fucking perfect. It's like a cheaper version of like a Mesa Boogie sound, with the Peavey grit, you know, the sandpaper kind of sound. That Peavey has a growl. Yeah, that's kind of like the gist of it. Just have a Marshall cab with the Marshall labeled V30s and G12 275, old school ones from the 80s. I'll make a playthrough video strictly for those who just want to get straight to the business. But thank you guys. Sorry for the lack of videos. I'm just living life, working, trying to make a better life for me and my family. So take it easy.